You think you know 1960s sci-fi? Hold on. For every blockbuster that blasted off into legend, there's a handful of movies so weird, so reality warping, they might just scramble your brain. Forget the family-friendly stuff. This is the era when Hollywood and its British cousins threw caution out the airlock and dared audiences to question everything: memory, time, even what it means to be human. Which movies left viewers reeling and critics scratching their heads? Buckle up, because you're about to find out. Seconds, 1966. Here's a question for you. If you could completely reinvent your life, would you do it? And what would you give up for that second chance? Seconds isn't just a sci-fi film. It's a psychological pressure cooker that dives headfirst into every dark corner of identity and regret. Directed by John Frankenheimer, this American cult classic opens on Arthur Hamilton, a burnt-out, middle-aged banker who feels like a ghost in his own life. The phone rings, and suddenly he's offered the ultimate escape, a clandestine operation that will fake his death and give him a surgically altered face, a new name, and a fresh start. At first, it sounds like freedom. Hamilton is transformed into Tony Wilson, played by Rock Hudson, and shipped off to California, where he's surrounded by other reborns chasing their own lost dreams. The catch? These new lives are more constructed than authentic, and the company pulling the strings doesn't take kindly to clients having second thoughts. As Tony's picture-perfect existence starts to unravel, the film plunges into a surreal nightmare. Nothing feels real, not the house, not the friends, not even his own reflection. Reality slips, trust evaporates, and the pressure builds until every scene feels like a bad dream you can't wake from. The brilliance of Seconds isn't just in its plot twists, but in how it's filmed. The camera never lets you relax. Extreme close-ups, wide-angle lenses, and off-kilter shots turn every conversation into an interrogation and every corridor into a maze. You feel as trapped and desperate as the main character, watching his second chance at happiness become a prison. This is a film that burrows under your skin and stays there, echoing with questions long after the credits roll. Is it science fiction? Is it horror? Or is it just a mirror showing you the cost of trading reality for fantasy? Either way, Seconds delivers a mind-bending experience you won't soon forget. The Power, 1968. Imagine sitting at a table with your co-workers and realizing one of them isn't just a genius, they can bend reality with their mind. Welcome to The Power, an underrated slice of late 60s sci-fi paranoia that pushes the boundaries of what brains and movies can do. This film, adapted from the novel by Frank M. Robinson, starts off in a university research lab where a team of scientists is working on experiments to measure the limits of human potential. What they don't know is that someone among them is already way off the human chart. Someone has psychic powers so intense they can control minds, move objects, and even erase people from existence. From the get-go, the Power doesn't play nice. When a colleague's body is discovered, reduced to a pile of bones by a force no one can explain, the paranoia kicks in. Dr. Jim Tanner, played by George Hamilton, suddenly finds himself targeted by invisible enemies. His bank accounts vanish. Old friends deny ever knowing him. Objects in his home come alive with a will of their own. The world he knows starts to slip sideways, and everyone around him becomes a suspect. Is he losing his grip, or is there really a puppet master pulling all the strings? Director Byron Haskin turns up the tension with a style that feels one part Hitchcock, one part fever dream. Distorted camera angles, warped sound design, and bursts of surreal imagery keep you on edge. Each scene dares you to question what's real and what's planted in Jim's mind by an enemy he can't see. The film is packed with moments that stick, like the scene where a spinning carousel turns into a deadly trap, or when a simple doorknob becomes a threat. It's not flashy, but it's relentlessly clever, twisting your expectations and cranking up the stakes. What makes The Power stand out is how it explores the dark side of human evolution. What if the next step isn't technology, but the mind itself? What happens when the smartest person in the room can literally change your reality? By the time the final showdown arrives, you'll be as suspicious of your own thoughts as the characters on screen. In a decade obsessed with space and machines, The Power reminds you that the scariest territory is the one between your ears. Crack in the World, 1965. Let's face it, in the 1960s, movie scientists loved to mess with things best left alone. Crack in the World turns that impulse up to 11 and then some. Here's the setup. A team of scientists, determined to tap into the Earth's geothermal energy, decides to drill straight through the planet's crust. Not risky enough? They plan to blast through the densest layer with a nuclear device. It's supposed to be the breakthrough of the century. What could possibly go wrong? Only, the literal destruction of the planet. The film opens with the kind of high-stakes lab chatter and Cold War optimism that defined the era. Dr. Steven Sorensen, the project's leader, is determined to unlock unlimited energy, even as his colleagues warn him about catastrophic risks. But this is the age of pushing boundaries. So, detonation. The result is far more terrifying than they expected. A massive crack in the Earth's crust, spreading at an unstoppable rate and threatening to encircle and split the planet in two. Suddenly, what started as a bid for progress spirals into a desperate fight for survival, with nature itself as the villain. Crack in the world shines because it never lets you settle. The danger isn't an alien or a monster, but our own ambition and arrogance. The effects, while charmingly retro, still pack a punch. Scenes of cities trembling, ground splitting open, and scientists scrambling in bunkers feel urgent, almost prophetic. Every character is on edge, racing against a ticking clock as disaster inches closer. There's a wild sort of poetry to the film's pacing. Every new attempt to stop the crack, detonating yet another bomb, for example, only makes things worse. And in true 1960s fashion, the solution is both grand and slightly unhinged, involving another massive explosion in hopes of redirecting disaster. Through it all, the film never stops asking, just because you can, does it mean you should? By the time the credits roll, you're left with a healthy dose of awe and dread, wondering if humanity's real enemy might be its own unchecked curiosity. This is sci-fi disaster at its mind-bending best. Robinson Crusoe on Mars, 1964. How do you make a survival story feel like a fever dream? You send Robinson Crusoe to Mars, strip away all hope of rescue, and let him wrestle with both isolation and the unknown. Robinson Crusoe on Mars takes Daniel Defoe's classic story and launches it into deep space, where loneliness is just the beginning of the adventure. It starts with a bang. Commander Kit Draper and Colonel Dan McReady are orbiting Mars, only for a freak asteroid event to send them crash landing on the red planet's alien surface. Draper soon finds himself alone, save for a NASA-trained monkey named Mona. Mars isn't just desolate, it's an active threat. Draper struggles with dwindling supplies, bizarre hallucinations, and the terror of suffocating in his suit. He finds oxygen in the most unlikely places, water hidden in Martian rocks, and eventually a cave that becomes both sanctuary and prison. But survival is never simple. Just when Draper figures out the basics, the script flips. He stumbles upon a mysterious skeleton, hinting at previous visitors, and then encounters a group of human-like slaves hunted by faceless alien overlords. Enter Friday, a fellow survivor who turns out to be much more than just a sidekick. He's the link between Draper's sanity and total despair. Together, they dodge death rays, hunt for food, and try to outwit a planet that seems determined to erase every trace of them. What makes Robinson Crusoe on Mars truly mind-bending isn't just the visuals, though. The alien landscapes, fiery sky, and low-gravity stunts are a treat. It's the film's commitment to atmosphere. The story pulls you deep into Draper's mental state. The hunger, the desperation, the slow loss of hope. Every strange rock and shadow feels like a new test. Is it science fiction or just the ultimate meditation on what it means to be truly alone? By the time rescue appears on the horizon, you're not sure if you want to leave Mars or if you've become part of its eerie, beautiful madness. This is survival sci-fi at its most dreamlike and human. X. The Man with the X-Ray Eyes, 1963. What happens when curiosity goes just a little too far? X. The Man with the X-Ray Eyes is a psychedelic plunge into the dangers of seeing too much, literally. Dr. James Xavier, a driven scientist with a taste for the forbidden, invents a pair of eye drops that grant him X-ray vision. At first, it's all medical breakthroughs and parlor tricks. Xavier can diagnose illnesses, see through walls, and uncover secrets hidden beneath the surface of the everyday world. Sounds like a dream, right? Not for long. As Xavier's powers grow, so does his inability to control them. What starts as a superpower quickly becomes a curse. Imagine being able to see everything, bones, nerves, and eventually, things beyond human comprehension. The film is relentless in showing the breakdown. Xavier's relationships unravel. He becomes a sideshow act, tormented by hallucinations and driven to the brink of madness. The world he once knew is replaced by layers of terrifying, incomprehensible patterns. At its height, the film transforms ordinary scenes into surreal nightmares, with shifting colors, warped faces, and visions that feel more like fever dreams than reality. Director Roger Corman, the king of cult cinema, pours every trick he knows into this movie. The special effects are wild and inventive. The pacing is tight, and the story keeps raising the stakes. You can almost feel Xavier's panic as he loses his grip on the tangible world and is thrust into dimensions no human should ever see. The questions mount. How much knowledge is too much? What do we risk by chasing ultimate truth? By the end, you're left staring into the abyss right alongside Xavier, wondering if some things are better left unseen. This film is a warning shot across the bow of scientific ambition, a psychedelic carnival ride, and a haunting meditation on the cost of going too far. If you want a movie that will get under your skin and leave you thinking long after the credits fade, X, The Man with the X-Ray Eyes delivers a mind-bending punch that's pure 1960s sci-fi gold. Fantastic Voyage 1966. What if the only way to save a man's life was to break the laws of physics and shrink yourself to the size of a blood cell? Fantastic Voyage asks this question and then throws you headfirst into one of the most visually inventive sci-fi journeys of the decade. The setup is simple, but the execution is wild. A top scientist with vital Cold War secrets has a blood clot in his brain. The only hope is an experimental technology that can miniaturize people and objects. But there's a catch. The effect lasts only 1 hour. A crack team, including a steely doctor, a nervy pilot, and a scientist's beautiful assistant, is shrunk down, along with their submarine, and injected straight into the patient's bloodstream. Suddenly, the human body isn't just a backdrop, it's a surreal alien landscape. Blood cells look like crashing meteors. Arteries turn into raging rivers. Every system in the body is both a puzzle and a deadly trap. The stakes ratchet up as the crew dodges white blood cells, gets stuck in the heart, and faces sabotage from within. The visuals are a psychedelic trip, swirling colors, giant pulsating organs, and underwater-style action sequences that make you forget you're inside a human being. Director Richard Fleischer keeps the suspense cranked, reminding you that every second counts. If they don't finish the job in time, they'll grow back to normal size inside the patient's brain. Talk about a headache. What sets Fantastic Voyage apart isn't just the special effects, though they were groundbreaking for their day, but how the film turns the familiar into something unrecognizable and thrilling. The body, usually taken for granted, becomes an entire universe, unpredictable, dangerous, and beautiful. In the end, this isn't just a race against time. It's a journey that leaves you questioning how little you really know about the world inside yourself. Fantastic Voyage is a true mindbender, science, suspense, and pure imagination at their most daring. The Illustrated Man, 1969. How about a movie where the hero's skin is a map of your darkest nightmares? The Illustrated Man takes Ray Bradbury's twisted tales and etches them, literally, on the body of one mysterious wanderer. You meet Carl, a drifter covered in skin illustrations, each more haunting than the last. But don't call them tattoos. These moving images reveal stories so bizarre, so chilling, you might start checking your own skin for warning signs. The story itself unfolds as an anthology. Each illustration morphs into its own sci-fi short. One vision plunges you into a future where children use a virtual nursery to get frighteningly real revenge on their parents. Another sends you to an apocalyptic world where love is illegal and trust is a joke. Each story bends reality, blurring the line between what's possible and what's a nightmare. Carl's presence links them all, and as the film goes on, you start to wonder if the real monster is inside the stories or walking right in front of you. The visuals are just as bold as the concept. Swirling, colorful, often hallucinatory, the late 60s filmmaking style embraces the weird, with jarring cuts, dreamlike pacing, and just enough surrealism to keep you off balance. Rod Steiger, as the titular man, delivers a performance that's equal parts haunted and haunting. You never quite know if you're watching a man suffering or the universe itself unraveling through his skin. What makes The Illustrated Man stand out isn't just its anthology structure or wild imagery. It's the way it plays with your head, leaving you unsure if the stories are predictions, curses, or simply reflections of human fear and longing. The result is a film that sticks to your brain like a fever dream, uncomfortable, unshakable, and absolutely original. If you want sci-fi that's less spaceship and more psychological labyrinth, this is your ticket. Mysterious Island, 1961. Ever wish your shipwreck survival story had a little more, well, everything? Mysterious Island is the kind of movie that throws the kitchen sink at its audience. Giant monsters, volcanic eruptions, pirates, lost technology, and even a dash of Jules Verne steampunk. It's all here, and somehow it never feels like too much. The film begins with a daring Civil War escape via hot air balloon. Our ragtag group, including a pair of soldiers, a reporter, and a proper English lady, finds themselves swept by a storm and crash landing on a remote Pacific island. At first, things seem manageable. They build shelter, find food, and even make friends with a stray goat. But then the weirdness kicks in. Giant crabs attack. Giant bees threaten their survival. Giant chickens? Why not? It's all brought to life with stop-motion animation that's pure Ray Harryhausen magic. Creepy, charming, and absolutely unforgettable. As the castaways struggle to survive, they uncover the island's biggest secret, the presence of Captain Nemo, the enigmatic genius from 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Nemo's been using the island as a laboratory for his own brand of science, growing oversized animals to solve world hunger and testing submarine technology years ahead of its time. The group's fate becomes intertwined with Nemo's last desperate experiment as the island's volcano threatens to erupt and wipe them all out. What makes Mysterious Island so much fun is its relentless pace and fearless sense of adventure. Every few minutes brings a new danger, a new twist, or a new creature to marvel at. It's the rare movie where optimism and terror live side by side, and where the impossible feels like it might be waiting around every corner. By the explosive finale, you've seen enough spectacle for 10 movies, and you'll wish there was more. This is a mind-bender that's as much about wonder as it is about survival. The Day of the Triffids, 1963. You ever look at your houseplant and wonder what it's thinking? After watching The Day of the Triffids, you'll never trust a sunflower again. This British classic starts with a cosmic spectacle. A meteor shower lights up the sky, blinding almost everyone on Earth. Suddenly, the world is defenseless, stumbling in the dark. Enter the Triffids. Towering, ambulatory plants that feed on flesh, move with eerie intelligence, and seem just a little too happy to have humans off the menu. Bill Mason, a biologist who missed the meteor event due to an eye operation, wakes up in a world turned upside down. The streets are chaos, society crumbles in days, and the Triffids, plants bred for their oil and harmlessness, are now running the show. Bill must navigate a landscape filled with danger, both plant and human, picking up unlikely allies and facing moments of heartbreak and terror. Meanwhile, a parallel storyline in a remote lighthouse delivers some of the movie's most tense and claustrophobic moments as survivors battle off the relentless advance of the Green Menace. What makes The Day of the Triffids a true mindbender isn't just the killer plants, it's the atmosphere of helplessness and dread that permeates every frame. The idea that humanity's downfall comes from its own blindness, both literal and figurative, is classic sci-fi irony. The Triffids themselves, realized with practical effects and a healthy dose of 1960s ingenuity, are both silly and genuinely creepy. Their rustling, lurching movements have a weird staying power, haunting your memory every time you hear the wind in the garden. This is a disaster movie, a monster movie, and a survival thriller all rolled into one. It's also a cautionary tale, reminding you that nature, once unleashed, doesn't care about your rules. If you want a movie that will make you jump, squirm, and maybe water your plants with a little extra caution, The Day of the Triffids is your new nightmare. Village of the Damned, 1960. In the sleepy English village of Midwich, time stands still, literally. One day, everyone in town suddenly collapses, only to wake up hours later with no memory of what happened. It seems like an odd fluke, until every woman of childbearing age turns up pregnant. Months later, a new generation is born. The children are identical. Platinum blonde hair, piercing eyes, cold stares that go right through you. They're polite, they're eerily quiet, and they're absolutely not human. As the kids grow, it becomes clear they share a telepathic link. They finish each other's sentences. They move in perfect unison, and when threatened, they strike back with a power that turns adults into helpless puppets. The village's efforts to understand or contain the children spiral into fear, violence, and tragedy. Professor Gordon Zellaby, whose own son is one of the children, tries to reason with them, only to discover they're as ruthless as they are brilliant. Village of the Damned is the ultimate mindbender because it takes suburban calm and injects pure dread right under the surface. The horror here isn't monsters or aliens you can see coming. It's the terror of something familiar becoming unknowable. The film is loaded with chilling moments. Children staring down angry mobs, using their mental powers to turn ordinary objects into weapons, or quietly asserting their dominance over the village. The black and white cinematography amplifies the sense of unease, making every shadow look like a lurking threat. This movie doesn't rely on jump scares or flashy effects. Instead, it creeps up on you, turning the ordinary into the extraordinary. The real genius of Village of the Damned is how it asks, what would you do if the future arrived and you couldn't stop it? It's a science fiction tale that will make you look twice at the next group of kids you see playing quietly in the park. Trust me, you'll never see childhood innocence the same way again. The Time Travelers, 1964. Time travel isn't supposed to be easy. In The Time Travelers, it's downright hazardous. This American indie gem kicks off with a group of scientists inventing a window into the future. It's a gimmick that's supposed to be safe, observe, don't touch, but curiosity, as always, gets the better of them. When the team steps through their machine and into a devastated post-apocalyptic Earth, there's no going back. The future they find is brutal and bleak. The surface is ravaged by nuclear war, and the only survivors are a mix of desperate humans and mutated monsters. The scientists, out of their depth, must navigate this hostile world, all while racing against the clock to repair their portal and return home. Along the way, they encounter a hidden underground civilization, led by scientists who are planning an escape from Earth itself. There's tension, betrayal, and a fight for survival as the present and future collide in unpredictable ways. What makes The Time Travelers a standout isn't just its concept, but its wild, creative spirit. The movie brims with practical effects, colorful sets, and inventive, low-budget tricks that give it a distinct charm. One of the most memorable sequences is the assembly line of android workers, a wordless, hypnotic ballet of technology and choreography that sticks in your mind long after. The film never shies away from asking big questions. Is the future something we shape, or something we're doomed to inherit? And what would you do if you saw the end of the world coming? The finale is pure time warp brilliance. As the heroes make their escape, a glitch in the time portal sends them spinning through multiple timelines, each more surreal than the last. It's a perfect cap to a film that never stops throwing new ideas at you. If you love your sci-fi with a touch of the unexpected, The Time Travelers will scratch every itch. Just be warned, you might finish the movie looking for your own portal to somewhere safer. The Lost World, 1960. Take a classic adventure, crank the dial to 11, and you get The Lost World, a big, brash, and wildly imaginative journey to a place that time forgot. Professor Challenger, the ultimate eccentric explorer, leads a ragtag group, including a skeptical reporter, a big game hunter, and a love interest, deep into the uncharted jungles of South America. Their mission, to prove that dinosaurs and prehistoric monsters still roam a remote plateau untouched by civilization. The expedition's arrival in the Lost World is a feast for the senses. Giant reptiles, carnivorous plants, and perilous cliffs are everywhere. The group soon discovers they're not alone. Cave-dwelling tribes and rival explorers up the stakes, turning survival into a daily gamble. There are betrayals, close calls, and more than a few scenes where you'll wonder if anyone's getting out alive. And then there are the creatures themselves. Sure, the effects rely on lizards in costume and stop-motion trickery, but in the hands of director Irwin Allen, it all feels gloriously over the top and larger than life. What sets The Lost World apart isn't just the adventure, but the sense of possibility. This is a movie where anything can happen, and often does. Volcanoes erupt, friendships are tested, and the rules of science are rewritten with each new encounter. The film pulses with a what-if energy that captures the thrill of the unknown. It's a perfect blend of pulp fiction, old-school science, and straight-up spectacle. When the survivors finally make their way back to civilization, carrying proof of their discoveries, you can't help but feel a pang of disappointment, because you want to go back too. That's the magic of The Lost World. It opens the door to another era, one where danger and discovery are always just a step away. Watch it with your sense of wonder turned up to maximum, and don't be surprised if you start dreaming about your own prehistoric adventure. So, which of these mind-bending 1960s sci-fi gems warped your reality the most? Did any make you rethink everything you know about science fiction, or even your own imagination? If your watch list just got a little weirder, you're not alone. Drop your favorites or hidden picks in the comments, hit that subscribe button, and share this trip with a friend who loves the strange side of cinema. The wildest journeys are always just a reel away. Are you ready for the next adventure?